Hey, and welcome to 386. By now, you should have completed your personal value proposition and turned that in on Blackboard. And you also should have finished the Let's Be Entrepreneurs assignment. I'm looking forward to reading all of those, but I want to go over something with you about the Let's Be Entrepreneurs assignment. I'm sure that as you were reading through the directions, and I'm sure that as you were trying to complete it, you were feeling like things were really vague, like you weren't really sure what you were supposed to complete, what form I wanted it in. Um, I think that you probably were feeling a lot of uncertainty as you completed that assignment. This was purposeful. I want you to think back to how confusing it might have been to try to complete the assignment, and to how you felt as you were trying to sort through the details. I know I received emails from several of you with questions about things to do. I try to answer them as vaguely as possible without just leaving you hanging completely. But the reason that I do this to you is because you need to understand at this point in the entrepreneurial process what it means to feel uncertainty. We've talked about it quite a bit throughout the semester. And our goal is to reduce uncertainty. Now, entrepreneurs experience this every day. They wake up every day with a goal in mind, but no set of instructions really on how to complete this goal daily. Really, no idea of how the way the market's going to take some of the things they do or how they're going to be evaluated. Hoping to use the information that they have inside their bounded rationale and the information that they can gain from their peers to complete the task successfully. This is a feeling that is described as discomfort. You can think about how it felt for you as you were trying to complete the Let's Be Entrepreneurs assignment. Um, and understand that to be a successful entrepreneur, you have to be tenacious and resilient and push through even in those feelings of uncertainty. Now, please don't be angry with me because I made you feel that. It was all very purposeful. Like I told you, at this point, you need to be extremely self aware. How did you react when faced with uncertainty? Did you get angry? Did you ask questions? Did you try to find more information? Or did you reach out to peers in the class for help? Did you post anything in GroupMe? Did you look up things online? What did you do? There is no wrong response. There's just your response. And this is yet one more way to help you be more self aware. If you have any questions, let me know. Just email me. As for the personal value propositions, I look so forward to reading those. I hope that you had a good time doing those, and I hope they're going to be super helpful for you. As I was talking to my students in class today about the personal value propositions they wrote, I had several different takes on it and what they thought. Some of them would rethought the job that they were in currently and applied their strengths to help that job. Some people really like shot for the moon and wanted to be like scouts for a pro team and went that route to try to see where they stood with developing a value proposition for that job. And then yet others thought about interviews that they had had and how could they rework some of the strengths or some of the things that they had done in previous interviews to be stronger in future interviews. Just know that the process that you went through in writing your personal value proposition, whereas you do your homework on the customer, which in this instance would be the company that you want to interview with, and you try to determine what problem that they want solved. And every company has something they want solved. That's why they're hiring. What do they need solved? And what gains are they hoping to create? After you do your homework, then you look back at your list of strengths. And as you look at your strengths, you say, well, with strength A, I can provide this gain for the company and I can relieve this pain. And you'll go through each one of them and do that. As you do this, you may come to some strengths that you're like, this really doesn't apply. And that's okay. That's why we want to have lots of strengths, and then we'll go through and do as many as we can. After we finished, we're going to rank them in order of priority. And if it was one of those strengths where you're like, it just really didn't apply, then okay, that's great. Then just don't use that strength within your value proposition. It's probably not something that, if you feel it's applicable, even needs to be brought up in an interview process. Now, the process that you went through to do your personal value proposition is the exact same process that you'll go through to write a value proposition for a product and or company. You're going to do your homework on the market, the customers, and determine what problem they need solved, which we've all already talked about in class, and what gains might they want to get from it. This is where empathy really comes into play. After you figure that out, then you look at the strengths of your product and go through the same process. This strength could provide this gain and take away that pain, etc. Rank them and then write your value proposition. Some of the hardest part about writing a value proposition is actually getting to the point that the value proposition itself is a meaningful statement, but is also succinct. And that takes a little while. I hope that you were practicing this, and I hope that it took you just a little while. You see, you should really think this through. It's a really, really important statement, whether it's for you in a job interview or if it's for the product that you're trying to sell to your customers. You can always tell in an interview when someone's shooting from the hip. And in comparison to someone who's prepared and really thought through their strengths and how they apply to this job position. The same is true for value propositions for companies. So it should have been just a bit difficult to think through and write if you did it correctly. Again, I look forward to reading them. Let me know if you have any questions about it. I should have all of your grades posted by the end of this week. So you'll be able to look in Blackboard and get caught up on all your grades. But everything's going well. I'm super excited with all of the work that you're doing. Now, before I jump into the information that I want to talk to you about today, I want to tell you logistically what you could look for on Thursday and for next week. On Thursday, I want you to read through the customer validation and discovery articles on the website. We'll talk in depth about that on Thursday. Then on next Tuesday, class will not meet. I want you to take next Tuesday to review everything. There's a lot of information coming up on your next exam. So take next Tuesday for class time to review all of your information. And next Thursday, you will have an exam. It will be just like the others, but I'll give you a bit more information on it when it's closer to time. Let's talk today about Chapter 6, and let's talk a little bit more about the customer segment. You see, when you write your value proposition, you're writing it for the customer. A value proposition is a statement written for the customer and to the customer that tells them why they should choose your product as opposed to any other product or service that could solve the problem at hand. Why you? It's the intersection of the customer need and your product and what you can deliver for them. In doing that, inherently, we have to know who the customer is. If we don't know, then we can't write the value proposition. And as I told you in last class, this is the first two squares in the business canvas that we're going to complete. So let's talk more in depth right now about the customer segment. You're going to hear me use the terms customer segment and target market interchangeably, but I'm meaning the same thing in both of those. So as you were reading Chapter 6, you should have picked up on the fact that it's really important for you to get extremely specific and narrow down exactly who your customer is. Now, this means like really specific. So if you were offering up an app that is this is super popular with all my college students, if you're going to develop an app that is going to tell people where the drink specials are and what cover charges are for every night. If you're developing that app and it's pertinent for Tuscaloosa, I'm going to say, okay, well, who's your target market? The answer I always get is, well, college students. And I come out with this question, and you'll hear this a lot. Okay, well, which ones of those? And they say, well, all of them. No, not all college students are old enough to drink. Not all college students do drink. So which ones? And we begin to get more specific. Okay, college students that are old enough to drink, that want to drink, that will drink. Okay, well, which ones of those? Oh, well, the ones that are going to go out that night. Okay, which ones of those? And we get really, really specific in it. And perhaps we're talking about a specific night on Thursday night. Okay, it's going to be the students that usually go out on Thursday night. Well, which ones of those? Well, the ones who have money to pay for drinks, or the ones that don't have class on Friday, so they do go out on Thursday night. I can keep going with this example and I can keep saying, well, which ones of those, which ones of those. And you can see how we can narrow down and really get a specific group of people to be our target customer. Now, this scares a lot of entrepreneurs because a lot of entrepreneurs feel that the smaller that the number of their target market gets, they feel like that makes dollar signs go down. But that's not true. In fact, the more specific that you can get about who your target market is, you can see dollar signs get larger. Now, there's a lot of reasons for this, but mostly because you can truly invest in solving a problem for that particular group. You can truly invest in the smartest ways to market to that group, to develop customer relationships with that group, and to get your product to that group. As we talk more about the other squares inside the business canvas, we'll talk more about that, the channels and the customer relationships. But just know you need to get really, really specific. So how do we do that? There are lots of things that we look for in customer segments. We look for typical demographic information, such as income level, education level, where do they live? Um, do they have families? Are they married? How many children do they have? Do they work? Do they not work? There's lots of things that go into this. Race goes into this. Now, this is one of those things that where some people, especially today, get a little bit uncomfortable talking about race or differentiating between race and or gender. And it's completely understandable that these conversations are sensitive. However, in the context of talking about a target market, it can be extremely important to know if you're targeting a specific race or you're targeting a specific gender. For example, last year I was working with an entrepreneur and she was developing a hair relaxer for ethnic hair. And as we were talking about her target market, she was really apprehensive in saying that this was for Black people. And I could tell she was really scared to say that to me. Um, and so I was like, I can tell like you're really tiptoeing around some things. So let me ask you a question. Is your hair and my hair the same? And she was like, no, it's not. Well, if our hair is not the same, then why would you not exclude Caucasian people with different hair from your target market? And she said, well, I was just kind of afraid to say that. And I'm like, no. Like, you're not being racist. Actually, we're talking about a product that you developed for ethnic coarse hair. You need to say who it's for. And as you can see in this example, it is absolutely okay to talk about race. Perhaps it's something to do with gender. Maybe you're developing something for, I'm not even going to go there, but you can get where I'm going with this. So as you're thinking about different aspects of how to be more specific about your target market, please know that in most cases, that it is perfectly fine to really point out race and gender issues within your product, because typically that helps you narrow down the product more. So those are some places where we can start to narrow down a specific target market. We can narrow down by hobbies, by consumer behavior, by where a customer lives. Grocery stores, there's a number out there and I can't remember exactly what it is, but typical customers will travel within a certain radius or miles to a store. And people who live outside of that radius will probably not shop at a store, not on an ongoing basis. So even where someone lives in proximity to a store matters. In all of this, just remember, is you're starting to narrow down your customer segments, and you will have to do this in a future project. Every time you think you know who it is, ask that magic question. Well, which ones of those? And which ones of those? You can, inside your business, have more than one customer segment. So let me talk to you about a store that I opened. I started Velocity Pro Cycle here in Tuscaloosa. It was a high-end bicycle retail and repair shop, and I opened it in 2006. Well, when I did, I went through the whole process that I'm teaching you guys right now to understand that this was a market opportunity. I knew a lot of things were happening in Tuscaloosa at that time. One, I knew that the university was rolling out a strategic plan to turn the campus into a pedestrian only campus, and they were going to be pushing cars out. I knew that students were going to be valuing bicycles more to get to class. They were going to look for alternative forms of transportation to get back and forth. Some would walk, but others would want a different way to do it. So I knew bicycles would work there. Yet some other things that were going on at that time was this was in the height of the Lance Armstrong era. Lance had already won his first tour, had been diagnosed with cancer, was making his recovery, and was back competing and was looking at winning subsequent Tour de France races. So that was really popular, and road cycling, had become very popular. So I had that going on. Yet another thing we had going on was revolving around baby boomers. Now, an interesting thing about baby boomers is they're really the first generation of people as a whole to understand that they needed to exercise to maintain the level of health that they value. Prior to that, a lot of the generations worked harder, more manual labor. So there was more farming, there was more manual labor in jobs. So those people worked hard at work. Usher in the information age and more professional white collar jobs, and we see people being more sedentary in their work. So baby boomers realized that they needed to start exercising on a regular basis. Now, most of them would run, play tennis, other sports like that, but they'd made it to the age in the early 2000s where their knees were giving out on them. And as their knees started to turn into mush, they began to ride bicycles. So with that being said, I had two specific customer segments that I was targeting. The college student that would want a bike to ride to class, and baby boomers who were doing road cycling for fitness. Now let's think back to that market opportunity navigator. Do my products for those two customers overlap? Mountain bikes, road bikes? Maybe just a touch, not really. No. Does the marketing to reach those two customer segments overlap? No, they don't. So I had to really do some looking at what I had going on with two customer segments, and thankfully decided that I was able to pursue both of them at the same time. However, I knew my customer that were the college students were my number one priority. They were going to be the bread and butter of the store. So I went after both. So let's talk about that customer segment, the college student. Was it all college students? No. Which ones of those? Well, first of all, it was college students who wanted to ride a bike from home to class, etc. So those. Okay, well, which ones of those? For me, it was the ones who wanted to pay for and or could pay for a $450 or $500 mountain bike. You see, the bikes sold at Walmart, Academy Sports and Outdoors, Target weren't really my competition. They served a different customer segment. Those were customers who valued a lower cost. My customers valued a higher quality bicycle. So those. But then I had to think about it a little bit more in depth. And this is where something really important comes in. You need to understand the difference between who's your customer and who is the end user. Those can be two different people. In actuality, the end user for me was the college student. That was the person who would choose the bike and be riding the bike. However, they weren't really my customer. My customer was their parents. The parents are the one that paid for the bike and would allow for it. So you see, as you get more specific and really think about who your true customers are, then you start to distinguish these things and understand where to spend money on advertising and how to plan for it. Additionally, with baby boomers, I could go through that customer segment and do the same process. Well, which ones of those? Well, which ones of those? But you can see now how using the whole process of entrepreneurial awareness, thinking about what was happening in my market, different types of customers, end users, different kinds of bicycles, how we were able to plan out and start a really successful store that is still in business today. It's on its third owner. It makes me very happy. I look at it with like motherly love when I go by thinking that it's still successful. Makes me super happy. Okay. So I hope that that helps you understand a bit more about customer segments. Remember, very specific. I had another question in class that last week that was really important, and that I'm going to address the answer to it today because in chapter 6, it talks about the question. And the question that was proposed last week was when I said, we're going to learn how to write a value proposition, the student said, is that the same thing as a mission statement? And it's not. You need both, and you're going to need to learn how to write both. So let's talk about the difference in a value proposition and a mission statement. A value proposition is written for the customer, to tell the customer why they should choose your product or service over any of the competitors that could possibly solve the problem for them. Why you? A mission statement, on the other hand, is written more for the company, the employees, possible investors. And the mission statement tells the employees, investors, what business you are in. What are you in the business of doing? And this is where we start to articulate the problem we're trying to solve. You see, you need to really be clear about what business you're in. I was not in the business of being a bicycle shop. Not at all. A bicycle shop just happened to be the solution I brought to market at that time. Let's really think about the business I was in. I was in the business of providing alternate forms of transportation and alternate forms of fitness. That was my business. You see, the problem I was solving was helping students move to class in a much more expedient way. Some of them had a long way to go between classes so they could get there. I helped alleviate the stress associated with trying to get to all of your classes on time, to alleviate heat. It's hot in Alabama, and you can get really hot walking to class. It's much cooler on a bicycle when you're creating your own wind. So it was an alternate form of transportation. There were many types of transportation that students could choose. I just happened to offer a bicycle. So I was not in the bicycle business. I was in the alternate form of transportation business. Same when we look at the fitness part of it. I provided an alternate form of fitness for the baby boomers. They could have chosen a lot of things to do, but I happened to bring the solution of a bicycle to market. So you need to think back on those idea opportunity assignments that you did. What problem were you solving? And understand that the solution you bring to market happens to be the solution they value today, but it might not be the solution that the market values next year. And if that's the case, you need to be sure that you're in the business of solving a problem, not in the business of that particular solution. And well, what do I mean by that? So let's think about the business canvas. You guys are going to be completing the business canvas this semester, but you're doing so that you can look at the information and evaluate whether this startup is something that you should do or not. And it's very helpful for that. But the business canvas also should be something that the entrepreneur puts on a corkboard right beside their desk and that they look at on an ongoing basis. Because number one, it's going to remind you what you're doing. Why are you here? And you look at that value proposition and you're like, oh, yeah, I am here to help customers. I'm here to help customers, and this is how I'm doing it today. But remember, we thought of a lot of solutions. You see, you have to put yourself in the position to be flexible. If I still had Velocity right now, I would still be looking at the store as an alternate form of transportation. And now, 14, 15 years later, as I look around campus, I see lots of skateboards, lots of longboards. And if the store were still mine and my mission statement were to provide alternate forms of transportation for that target market, I would really be looking strongly at selling skateboards. Another thing, let's think about the baby boomers. Perhaps bicycles now are not necessarily where they want to be as far as fitness is concerned. Um, Maybe they want stand-up paddle boards. Maybe that's what I need to be looking at. But if your mission statement is what you're in the business of, providing alternate forms of transportation and alternate forms of fitness, then that allows you the flexibility to choose different solutions as market values and demands change. So be super careful as you're writing your mission statement. Now, in the chapter, it gives you some good questions to ask to try to guide you. And you can look online and find some really great mission statements to give you examples that you could model and start to replicate as you get ready in your subsequent, the assignments that we have coming, to start writing out a mission statement. Now, this is a lot of info coming at you, but really it all kind of just really meshes together. So we've brought everything up from the individual entrepreneur, you being self-aware, all the way up to identifying problems to be solved, using empathy to articulate those, being creative and coming up with multiple solutions, identifying customer segments, being really specific with who our customer segments are, and starting to fill in this information into the business canvas. We can write our value proposition telling the customer why they should choose us. And we can write a mission statement that helps us stay in tune with what we're in business to do. That would help to guide the culture of the company, help guiding you as you start to bring investors to make sure that they understand the business you're in and that they value investing in that type of business, help you with selecting new employees to hire. Overall, it should guide everything that you do in your decisions in your company as you run it over time. On Thursday, we'll pick back up with talking about customer segments and the value proposition. We've got a lot of info now on how to correctly write a value proposition and how to correctly start to narrow down who our customer segments are. Customer segments should have come from your market opportunity navigators. And in class on Thursday, we're going to start talking about how do we really test this in the market to see if the value proposition and the customer segments we've chosen are correct. This is super fun stuff. We're really getting into the meat of how to be a successful entrepreneur. And on Thursday, we're going to talk about a step that you cannot miss if you really want to do it correctly. I hope that you all have a fantastic couple of days, and I look forward to seeing you on Thursday. Again, if you have any questions or need anything, please just email me. Have a great evening. See ya.